Desmond Dunn, I was 23 in 1980. At the very, very beginning of the 80s, I was just a normal lad that used to go out Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe once through the week. Married in 81, kids came along, 81, 83, so that's when the social life differed because here I moved away from Alnwick where I'd been all my life to Widrington where I had to sort making new friends. Club Friday night, club Saturday night, that was it. Small village, so not a great deal of people. Not like I was used to when I was in Alnwick.
What was the nightlife back? It's changed a lot now. What was the nightlife back in the 80s?
Oh, Craigie and Alnwick in the 80s, you could go out and everybody come out. Now, hardly anybody comes out. It's been priced out the market, as it were. Instead of buying a pint for, say, $3.50, you got a pack of 18 beers for £7. So you drank in the house. Or I drink in the house now rather than going out. Once in a while, special occasions, but not to socialise really.
And there's still a lot of clubs in and out, but there was loads more back then.
Oh, crikey, aye, I mean. But you had your favourites. Everybody met, say, in the Crown, and then he wandered up round Bluebell, that way, George. There were good pubs then. I mean, speaking to them now, that pub's not very good now. That pub's not very good now. But they were always full, always full. Not just by young lads, it was middle-aged. Everybody used to go to the pub. That's where you met everybody. Fair Week, oh, everybody loved Fair Week. If they had the holidays, because we didn't go abroad and out like that. You took your week's holiday if you could in Fair Week because a lot happened. The pubs were the same, but it just seemed a little bit better when it was Fair Week. Hobbies were, you met people, we always played football. Sunday afternoon, we always went to the pub, 12 o'clock. 2 o'clock was finishing time then. What'd you do from 2 till 7? You went and had to play a game of football on the rec, on the field up. Anywhere you could find grass, you played football. Oh, I have boogie Saturday, always on a Saturday. First thing you done, 11 o'clock, we at the boogies, put your bed on, then had a drink. You had closing times then, you see, so 3 o'clock was finishing on a Saturday. You went you watched the sport on the telly till 5, got yourself ready, out at 7. Yeah, just what mother made. I mean, she was a good cook, so she made sure we were fed. But Saturday was always fry up there. We always sausage, bacon, egg on a Saturday, ready for the Sunday dinner. Through the week, just whatever mother put together. Uh, just that it was on, I think it was on a Saturday, it was on all day, which was a bit boring. Started off watching it, then by about 3 o'clock, just away doing something else. Never watched it like some people did all day and all night. No. Lyrical, very lyrical. Obviously, you had the new romantics, as they called them. Then you had a lot of comedy songs in the 80s. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. Beginning of the 80s wasn't so good. 82 it started to get a lot better till obviously the end of the decade. Oh, well, I just like music full stop. So, I mean, I was always a Bowie fan ever since the 70s through the 70s. He quieted down a lot in the beginning of the 80s. Came back later on, but obviously Queen, they were another 70s band, really. 80s might have been bigger, but they were always what we know as a 70s band. Oh, it was brilliant. I loved my telly. I just loved everything from quiz shows to comedy shows. Just whatever was on, we watched. But then again, you only had BBC One, BBC Two, ITV. Channel 4 came later in the 80s, but that was it. That was your telly. That's how they had so high viewing figures. Well, like everybody, obviously, Fools and Horses, Just Good Friends. They were the comedy ones. Then you had your Bergeracs, that was your thing. And your quiz shows, I mean, Bullseye, Paul Daniels done a lot, Bob Monkhouse done a lot. Oh, the first time it was on, we didn't really know what was happening then. Suddenly, with it being a Geordie, obviously, we started watching it. And then after 2 or 3 weeks, that was, yes, course, you had your VHS then. So obviously, if you were out, you taped it and you watched it. But you never missed an episode. Oh, sport, I mean, I just love sport full stop, from snooker to football to cricket. Test matches were on all day, from Thursday to, well, a Monday night, Tuesday. They were on BBC Two. The first session, 11 o'clock till 7 o'clock stumps. Football, yeah. Of course, in football, we didn't have the football you had now. You had match of the day, which one or two matches, and then the results. Then ITV had the Sunday afternoon, one or two matches. Shoot was a northeast thing. So you had Newcastle, Sunderland, Borough, Hartlepool, Dalton, and that was it. You had their matches and one main match. Yeah, Clayborough Gardens, 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, sitting room, kitchen. Lived there until end of 81. Then I bought my own house in Widderton, obviously been married, which was about 15 mile from Annex. So that's when social life and all things changed. Then the kids come along, so you just worked, went out Friday, Saturday night, worked, out Friday, Saturday night. You knew it from number 1 right up to 36, 59, 60, right up to Mrs. Max. You knew everybody that lived in Clayborough Gardens. Totally different, because obviously you didn't know them. You had to start knowing them all from afresh. Older, definitely not the same, but you got to know them. You got to know them through the kids as well, like, obviously, because young families there all had kids. That's how you knew them. But a lot of people work, so you only seen them Friday, Saturday night. Not like at Annick when you seen them every day. Obviously, whether you like Margaret Thatcher or not, was good, because a lot of people bought the houses instead of paying the rent. And a lot of people done well out of it, so you might have called her, but she did do a good thing for the rent to buy, yeah. She wanted people to be, well, lift them up in class, really, instead of just, she wanted rid of the lower class. She wanted everybody to be middle class or Tory voters. I was a miner from 1978. I worked at, well, started off in the 70s at the brickworks, then Hardy's. 78, started work at Shilbottle Colliery. 1980, I became a face worker, which was as far as you could go unless you want to be deputy or management. So yeah, everybody thrived to be a face worker, because that's where the little bit extra money was.
What did your job entail? What did you do?
From the start, everybody started on what they call the buttons, just controlling the belts. Then you went on to supplies, which was a step up. From the supplies, then to your face training. Took about 4 to 6 months your face training. Then you were a face worker, and you got the call out.
And what, like, when you're on the face, like, literally, what you do from day to day?
Right from
Conditions?
it never ever changed. Went in. We worked in seams which were, say, from 2'6" to maximum 4 foot. So you were on your hands and knees all day. I was like a coal filler, so we had 10-yard stretches. Somebody come in, drilled it, fired it. We went in, we cleared as fast as you could the 10 yards. If you finished before anybody else, you just went on to help them. Believe it or not, the old men, what we used to call them, 40s, 50s, they were the best hand fillers you've ever seen. They'd done it all their life. Us youngins thought we could do it, but not as good as them. I would say okay. I mean, they weren't what normal people now, when they see a coal miner, that's what they were like. They were dirty, just coal around. Once I went to Elton in the 81, I couldn't believe you were standing up in places 20 foot high, walking around, working on what the coal face, 20 foot high. Couldn't believe it.
So, yeah, so what were the differences between the two pits?
It's Shilbottle, you were hand filling. You could only fill one cut a week, one cut a day. So you couldn't make what we call bonus. Yes, there was bonus. I think it was 23 pence. I think was a bonus, and that's the most you could make. Went to Elton, suddenly you were making 40, 50 pound a day bonus. So that was a total difference. Yet you were doing, I wouldn't say you were weren't doing hard work, but you weren't doing as hard a work that you were in the hand filling pit. In the 80s, we were very well paid at Elton, but when the strike came along in 84, we were paupers compared with the Yorkshire miners. They were earning 78, £900 a week. So we were bringing home £200 a week, and we thought, oh, brilliant. But then we heard they were bringing 78, £900 a week. That's why they didn't want their pits to close, obviously. Oh, I loved my job, and I loved the lads that were there. You just enjoyed just going to work. Every day was different, but the same, if you can understand, you different crack. You talked about everything that had happened the night or day before. You loved work then, and I think most people did love work, going to work.
Was that ever dangerous? Was there any of that?
Oh, it was dangerous all the time. I mean, but you never think of the danger. If you started thinking of the danger, you would just walk out and never go back. If it happened, it happened.
Any accidents you can remember?
I had a few. I mean, obviously, stone falling out the roof, hitting, little cuts and scratches all the time. It just happened. It was part and parcel of the work. Later on, you felt it, but at the time, no, because you were a young daft lad. That'll never bother. And the older ones, well, didn't lift with your head, because nah, that'll not bother me. Oh, didn't lift like that? Nah, that'll not bother me. Obviously, later on in life, it come to fruition that it did bother you.
Any characters you can remember?
Oh, every single person's character, whether everybody had their own character and everybody knew who that character was. You watch sitcoms now and you say, that was him, that was him. Whoever wrote them obviously studied people, and everybody's the same in every walk of life. Elton, I was there from 81 to 95 when it closed, back in 86 when it got privatised till 2005. Then went down to Dormill, Coventry. I think I come around about 4, I think. At the time, heart attack. The only accident that became a fatality was somebody broke his back. 4 or 5 months later, he died, obviously through the breaking his back. But the rest were just cuts, bruises, few broken bones, but fatalities only, I think, 4 in my lifetime. No, everybody just come together, everybody was looking out for you as well as you're looking out for yourself. So, as I say, 3 of them were heart attacks, so there's nothing you could do about that. The other one, he was doing the same as everybody else, trying to make more money. Unfortunately, it worked against him. That was at Whittle, you see. So I was at Chilbot, which was a shaft. Whittle was a drift mine, which was sliding down the belt. So I never, even though Elton had a drift mine, that was the other end of the pit. So I was always a shaft man rather than a drift man. I wouldn't have left it if it was going to be. I would have been there till, well, 67 as it is now. But yeah, it's just something you did. You never wanted to leave the mines, but just circumstances made you leave the mines.
Did you take pride in your job?
Yes, you've got to. I mean, whether, not just mining, I think it's the same in any job, whether it's the worst paid job in the world, you take pride in it because you try to do the best you can. It's the best paid job around here. As I say, 80's, I think I was getting £45 a week in 1978 at 80's, went to Shilbottle up to £60 a week, only £15, but it was a lot. You could bought a lot for that money then. Just going to work on a Tuesday. The union leader come across, lads, we're not going down to work today. We're coming on strike. They're striking all over the country. It'll not be long. We'll be back shortly, couple of weeks. Couple of weeks turned into a couple of months. Couple of months turned into, well, eventually a year. Just at Chilbottle, we had, I think we had a week off because of trying bonus, which we couldn't make any more than 23 pence a shift bonus. I think they put it up to 30 pence a shift bonus. A week a week at Chilwell before the actual strike.
There was no ballot, was there? What do you think about that?
There was no ballot. No, there was no ballot. I think Elton had a ballot, but it wasn't recognised nationally. So there was never a national ballot. There was a ballot. I think Elton voted to go back to work, but I think the union leader come across. He says it doesn't matter if you vote to come back to work or not. You'll not be going back to work. Scargill says you can't. Union up here, you needed them. You needed them. You'll always need unions. Some union men are in it for themselves, but Northumberland Union, they were in it for the men. Because they were just, them being in the union meant they had 2 or 3 shifts on surface rather than down the pit. But they were down the pit the same as the lads. If the lads had any quarrels, they went across to management, but they always had a Friday on surface. So, you've got to have unions wherever you go. Yeah, it probably was because of the most members, but it was the National Union miners, but I felt, and a lot of people felt, Northumberland miners didn't count. It was Yorkshire miners. Whatever Yorkshire miners want, Yorkshire miners got. It was the end of March or middle of March, so it was coming into summer, and suddenly, well, for one reason or not, it was probably the best summer they'd had for 20 years. So little kids living near a beach, you went to the sea cool, and that was the only thing I'd done, which I never thought I'd do. Went down to the beach when the tide went out, left little granules of coal that we bagged up for heating. 2 little kids, obviously the families helped. The wife's mother and father, obviously my mother. We never went short because we didn't have a lot to start with. But just what you call food, if you had food on the table, when they went shopping, they might have bought something extra, and they just give it to you. Not really, because we were too little. I mean, yes, everybody tried support, but not a lot of people were interested in it, to be honest. Elton never really had what you call a picket line. If you wanted to join the picket line, you had to get on a bus or in a car, and they would take you down to Yorkshire to the big power stations. Obviously, with a young family, I wasn't going to be away 2 or 3 days at a time, so no. I didn't know. You had the chance if you went into Ashton, you used to pick them up, but by all accounts, the food parcels were, and I'm not saying out against the Polish food, but people didn't like what they got, actually. Margaret Thatcher was just a leader of a government, and although she might have been progressed as the leader of it, yes, she was the leader of it, she didn't make all the decisions by herself. She had a parliament that done that. So parliament were just as bad as her in anything they did. She was a figurehead of a government that wanted to not break them, but not let them be so powerful. Instead of doing what the workers wanted, the unions suddenly became that big. The workers did what the unions wanted. And that's what destroyed the unions. The unions had too much power. Yes, they did. But the workers didn't, because the workers did what the union wanted them to do rather than how it should be. The union do what the workers wanted. Yes, but you didn't want to admit it to the family that it was good. Yes, it was. Well, it was, but you didn't have to say, I don't want to be off work. You did want to be off work. I went back in late November, just before Christmas, when I think I was one of about 200, 300, 400 of the 1,500 miners worked it down. Just to get money. I mean, if other people were back to work getting money, I might as well be as well. So that was the reason. Not to break the union, not to break the strike, just for money, see, plain and simple. What was winning? Whatever happened through the failure of the strike was going to happen maybe 2, 3, 4 years later, which it did. Whether it won the strike, the same thing would have happened. Maybe lasted another 2 or 3 years for some collieries, but they were always going to close, the ones that closed.
Why?
Why? Because if they'd won the strike after a year, 2 years later, new government, same leader, but new government after an election would have slowly brought the same things in, and people would have said, "Phew, we're not going to strike for another year, I tell you that now." And that's how they would have won eventually. That's it. I mean, what was going to be a strike for, say, a month, there was two hard-headed people that stretched it out a lot longer. Scogill, I don't think he wanted a year strike. He wanted a 2 or 3 week strike like there was in 74, 76, thinking, yes, we'll go back after a month, we'll get more money, we'll keep pits open. He never thought it would last a year, nobody did. That was the idea, but with the strategist Scogill had, he realised his probably vote would have been split down the middle, and he wasn't prepared to lose face by losing the strike vote, whether it was 49-51, because I think we had to have 55% anyhow to actually implement a national strike, and he knew it was too close to call getting the 55%, so he would have lost face. To be honest, that was just an excuse. It was coming to the end of the summer, it was starting to get colder. The colder, you're not happy when it's cold, might as well be at work. When we first went back to work, we were looking around to see who had come back to work, because obviously Elton, it wasn't a place. Elton had people from Ashington, Newbiggin, Blythe, Widron, where I came from. It was a cosmopolitan pit, it wasn't a community pit, so that might have played a different effect, but everybody just got on with it. 4 or 5 people, I think. It wasn't a picket line that you seen on the news where there was hundreds and thousands, no. Battle buses, when they were on, it was like an SES operation getting we in. Yes, the first few days, lots and lots of pickets, because the first time it had happened in Elton, and that just whittled away because there was bigger fish to fry in Nottingham and Yorkshire. They were the ones that they didn't want to go back to Elton. We never produced coal until the end of the strike. It was just a case of getting to the media that, yes, Elton had 200 people back to work this week, we had another 300. Never produced coal till the end of the strike.
How do you mean?
We just cleaned up the place, got the place ready for when the strike did ended. No coal mining machines were turned over. It was just cleaning up the whole pit.
And so you went back in November, and then the strike lasted
Till March. Middle of March, I think it was, then they came back. And then first few months, he came back to work, he didn't. After the first few months, everybody had to just work on together. Yes, there was hardliners, what they would say, that say wouldn't work with him, but that's just the way of life.
Did you lose any friends because of it?
I wouldn't say I did, no. Most of my friends were the ones that went back anyhow, because I worked with a team before the strike started, and as it happened, that team, I mean, one lived in Morpeth, one lived in Ashington, me, one lived in Lymouth. Yeah, we knew we were going back to work, so. And then after the strike, when the team got put together and in teams, I was in teams that I knew would dare come back to work with me, so it didn't affect us really.
And when you were about to go back, did you all talk amongst yourselves about going back?
No, because as I say, one lived in Morpeth, no, you never. The lads that you seen in the beginning of March when the strike started, very rarely seen them until you went back to work. As I say, it was a cosmopolitan pit, it wasn't a community pit.
With like it split families, brothers?
Oh, it did. I mean, you seen it from Ashington. I mean, Ashington was only, 5-6 mile away. You went, some the family went to work, some didn't. That split. I mean, even at the end of the strike and years later, yes, you could see brothers didn't speak to brothers, fathers didn't speak to sons. Yes, you could see it was there. It never went away. Until, well, whether it's away now, I don't know. But yes, you could see for years and years after that somebody that went back and somebody didn't, it split the family.
How do you think
Uh, it took away its identity a lot. Um, yes, the closed pits and oh, we'll build a big estate or a big something on the land that was there, but was never used. Housing, um, unless you lived in a small community, yes, the community spirit stayed there. Uh, Probably still does to an extent, but everybody moved around. That's when everybody started moving from place to place to place. So that's when the community spirit, as we knew in the 70s, 80s, that's when it split up.
How do you think it affected the young lads coming through who probably would have gone into mining and then?
They probably over the moon that they never did because there was better opportunities. They might turn around and say, yes, they had a better opportunities because you either went to the mines or you stayed where you were. A lot of lads now travel that they would never travelled unless communities broke up, and that's a fact of life.
Grown or not?
Um, yeah, the resources were there, but you wouldn't have um, your clean living or whatever they call it now. You wouldn't have that. You would still have smoke rising, but it never done that much harm, I didn't think. But obviously, scientists say yes, it's doing a lot of harm, but I never seen it. It's a government. It's a government decision. There's nothing we can do about it. I mean, we import coal. How much coal? I don't know. Definitely not as much as what we're digging out the ground. But yes, they import it. But they import gas. They import. You've got to think gas workers lost their jobs. Uh, it's just life. That's life's moved on.
Looking back, like, what are your thoughts of the 80s in general as a decade?
Uh, Same as the 70s, same as the 90s, same as the 2000s. It's just life, and you make the most of it, and you try to be as happy as you can.
And were you happy in the 80s?
Yeah, I was happy in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. Yeah.